Rajasthan train derailment. 6 long-distance trains of Western Railway were cancelled while 6 others diverted after the derailment of the Bandra terminus Jodhpur-Suryanagari express train near Pali in Rajasthan during the wee hours on Monday, the North Western Railway, NWR, informed. Bandra terminus Jodhpur-Suryanagari express, 12,480, derailed between Rajkaiyawa, Bomadra section in Jodhpur division of NWR. 11 coaches were impacted due to the derailment of the express train. The incident occurred at 3:27 am between the Rajkaiyawa-Bomadra section of the Jodhpur division. Originating from Bandra terminus, the train was en route to Jodhpur, officials said. A train crash occurred on 7 January 2023 when a Mexico City metro train going northward towards Indios Verde metro station crashed into another one that was parked inside the Potrero-La Raza interstation tunnel of Line 3, which runs below Avenida de los Insurgentes. The collision killed 1 person and injured 106 others, including the driver of the train that crashed. Metro train rear-ended another train between Potrero and La Raza stations along Line 3. 1 person was killed and 57 others were injured. 2 freight trains collided in Furnitz, Carinthia, in Austria. The collision took place at 4:23 am local time in a station area. Several wagons, as well as part of the rail tracks, caught fire. Luckily, the 2 train drivers involved in the accident carried only minor injuries and were both taken to the hospital. OB said that the causes of the accident are still unclear. OB Rail Cargo Group explained that the accident will disrupt freight traffic. Train traffic to and from Italy is currently only possible to a limited extent. The operation of Filok Sud is expected to be restricted until 25 January 2023, 00 hours. Train traffic to and from Slovenia is currently not affected, said the company. Kerosene leakage. According to RCG, the collision of the 2 trains happened side-on. Austrian media mentioned that the fire was caused by approximately 60,000 liters of kerosene that leaked on the tracks. The kerosene was part of the cargo moved by the freight trains. Fortunately, the fire brigade reached the location swiftly. The fire was under control but not fully extinguished by 7:30 am. Kichi train derailment leaks 10,000 gallons of acid, causing evacuation. A train derailment in Kichi caused residents to evacuate from their homes Friday night after over 10,000 gallons of acid products were spilled. According to the De Soto Parish Sheriff's Office Facebook page, just before 11 p.m. a train derailed at the railroad crossing on Highway 5 in Kichi. By 2 a.m. the Louisiana State Police hazmat team declared a mandatory evacuation of homes within a 1.5-mile radius of the railroad crossing. Officials concluded a debriefing with the LSP hazmat team, Union Pacific, and hazmat contractions at 6:30 a.m. Saturday. The preliminary inspection indicates that 16 cars derailed. 2 of 16 derailed tank cars are leaking an acid-related product. The particular acids react to moisture or water-releasing vapor that has occurred at the scene. Officials say air monitoring devices are arriving on the scene to give a more specific determination of the affected areas. This will allow better determination of continued areas of evacuation. Officials say 10,000 gallons of acetic anhydride and less than 1,000 gallons of propionic were spilled as a result of the derailment. East Palestine, Ohio, train derailment. A freight train derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, United States on February 3, 2023. The Norfolk Southern freight train was carrying hazardous materials when 38 cars derailed. Several railcars burned for more than 2 days, and emergency crews also conducted controlled burns of several railcars, too, which released hydrogen chloride and phosgene into the air. As a result, residents within a 1-mile, 1.6 kilometer radius were evacuated. Agencies from Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Virginia assisted in the emergency response. Following the derailment, reaction and commentary focused on industry working conditions and safety concerns, including the lack of modern brake safety regulations, the implementation of precision scheduled railroading, PSR, reduced railway workers per train, and increased train lengths and weight. Critics said train companies had failed to invest in maintenance to prevent accidents, even though they conduct stock buybacks, in which capital that could be used on maintenance and safety measures is instead distributed to existing shareholders. Several unions and consumer organizations expressed concern about private ownership of railways and a profit-driven approach, which they state puts workers and communities at high risk. The United Electrical, Radio and Machine Workers of America, UE, also called for public ownership of the U.S. railway systems. Major U.S. railroads promised to overhaul safety in the industry as a direct result of the East Palestine disaster. Although derailments rose at the top 5 freight railroads in 2023, Norfolk Southern was the only railroad among the 5 to report a decline in accidents in the period. A group of the railroads also promised to enroll in the Federal Railroad Administration's Close Call Incident Reporting System. Only NS has joined the system. In June 2024, the National Transportation Safety Board held a meeting in East Palestine to review its findings on the incident. The board voted unanimously to accept the findings and announced it would issue a report. By October 2023, Norfolk Southern removed more than 167,000 tons of contaminated soil and more than 39 million gallons of tainted water from the derailment site. 1 year after the incident, Norfolk Southern has committed more than $100 million to East Palestine, including $25 million for a regional safety training center and $25 million in planned improvements to East Palestine's park. The company has also paid $21 million directly to residents. Tempe train crash. On 28 February 2023, a head-on collision occurred between 2 trains south of the Tempe Valley in Greece, about halfway between the Greek villages of Tempe and Evangelismos in the Thessaly region. The collision, involving the Intercity 62, IC62, passenger train and an intermodal freight train, killed at least 57 people, with an official number of 342 passengers and 10 onboard railway staff on the passenger train and 2 staff on the freight train, totaling 354 people on both trains. It is the deadliest rail disaster in Greek history. It was discovered that the IC62 passenger train had been allowed to proceed on the wrong track and pass signals at danger despite the presence of the freight train on the same stretch of track. Vigils, angry protests, and clashes with the police occurred throughout Greece following the crash. Beginning on 2 March 2023, railway workers of Hellenic Train and the Athens Metro went on strike to protest the dangers related to the crash. Following the crash, Transport Minister Kostas Karamanlis resigned, taking responsibility for the crash and for his failure to bring Greek railways to 21st-century standards. He was re-elected, after applying just 2 weeks after the incident. The case has generated widespread condemnation of the state's handling of the investigation, which has been labeled as bogus with the alleged intent of prematurely concluding it. As of 2024, no politicians have been subject to investigation regarding their involvement in the events leading up to the disaster. This has prompted an open discussion among citizens and the media concerning the efficacy of the justice system, particularly regarding issues of impartiality and integrity. The government successfully weathered a no-confidence vote on 28 March 2024, despite accusations from the opposition regarding Mitsotakis' handling of the investigation. 16 injured in train derailment in Egypt. At least 2 people were killed and 16 others injured after a train derailed north of Cairo on Tuesday, according to Egypt's health ministry. The passenger train crashed into a train station platform in the city of Kaloub, the Ministry of Transport said in statement. The incident occurred at 7:20 p. local time, according to a statement by Egyptian National Railways, after the train failed to respond to a semaphore signal, ultimately hitting a buffer stopper which caused part of the train to jump the tracks. About 20 ambulances rushed to the scene to assist the wounded. Kamel El-Wazir, Egyptian transport minister, has ordered a committee to be formed to find out what caused the derailment and to identify those responsible and limit the damage, the statement added. Separately, Egypt's Ministry of Social Solidarity said in a statement released on Tuesday that the government will offer 100,000 Egyptian pounds, the equivalent of about $3,254, to the families of those killed. 3 injured in fiery train derailment caused by rockslide. An empty coal train hit a rockslide along tracks in West Virginia on Wednesday morning, causing a fiery derailment that injured 3 crew members, CSX Transportation said in a statement. 4 locomotives and 22 empty cars derailed in Summers County near the New River, CSX said. The lead locomotive, which carried a conductor, an engineer and an engineer trainee, caught fire and the crew members were being evaluated and treated for non-life-threatening injuries, the company said. CSX said an unoccupied locomotive was partially in the waterway where an unknown amount of diesel fuel and oil spilled, officials said. Environmental teams were deploying containment measures. The derailment occurred in a remote area just south of Sandstone inside the New River National Park and Preserve, according to a statement from the West Virginia Emergency Management Division. Several state agencies are monitoring the situation and said public water systems downstream have been notified and are monitoring for any potential public health impacts. No hazardous materials were being transported and there was no danger to the public, CSX said. The company said employee and community safety was a top priority as it sends teams to assess the situation and develop a recovery plan. Lagos train bus crash. NRC, LASEMA blame driver as FG orders probe. Lagos State Emergency Management Agency and the Nigerian Railway Corporation have blamed the driver of a Lagos state government staff bus for a fatal train accident which killed 6 people and injured 96 in the PWD area of the state on Thursday. Tragedy struck in Lagos a few minutes before 8 a.m. on Thursday when a passenger train collided with a fully loaded staff bus belonging to the Lagos state government at the PWD rail crossing, off the Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway. Giving reasons for the deadly crash, the permanent secretary of LASEMA, Dr. Olufemi Oki Osanintolu, told journalists that the bus driver ignored signals from the NRC officials as he was in a hurry to cross the rail. Also, the NRC, in a statement by its Deputy Director Public Relations, Yaqub Mahmood, said the bus failed to obey the instruction of the corporation officials as he overtook other vehicles waiting for the train to pass. The federal government has ordered an investigation into the accident. The ill-fated bus with registration number 04A48LA was navigating its way to connect the government residential area, Ikeja en route to the state secretariat, ALA-USA, when it collided with the train at the PWD rail crossing. The bus was said to be coming from Isolo while the train was heading to Edo from Ijoko, Ogun State. According to eyewitnesses, the train dragged the bus on its rail for about 100 meters from PWD to Sogunal before getting stuck. Some panic-stricken passengers of the bus, especially those close to the exit doors, reportedly made frantic efforts to jump off the bus being dragged by the train. By the time the train and the bus finally stopped on the rail, the bus passengers fell upon one another in their attempts to find their way out of the trapped vehicle. 2 passengers were said to have died on the spot while others sustained various degrees of injuries. Rescue workers who were mobilized to the scene evacuated the victims and rushed them to the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, Ikeja. BNSF train derailment spills diesel fuel on tribal land in Washington state. 2 BNSF trains derailed in separate incidents in Arizona and Washington state on Thursday, with the latter spilling diesel fuel on tribal land along Puget Sound. No injuries were reported. It wasn't clear what caused either derailment. The derailment in Washington occurred on a berm along Padilla Bay, on the Swinomish Tribal Reservation near Anacortes. Most of 5,000 gallons of spilled diesel fuel leaked on the land side of the berm rather than toward the water, according to the state ecology department. Officials said there were no indications the spill reached the water or affected any wildlife. Responders placed a boom along the shoreline as a precaution and removed the remaining fuel from 2 locomotives that derailed. 4 tank cars remained upright. The derailment in western Arizona, near the state's border with California and Nevada, involved a train carrying corn syrup. A spokeswoman for the Mojave County Sheriff's Office, Anita Mortensen, said that she was not aware of any spills or leaks. Train derailment spills hazardous materials in North Dakota. Canadian Pacific says 31 cars of a 70-car train left the tracks near Windmere, some 60 miles southwest of Fargo, spilling liquid asphalt. A Canadian Pacific train derailed in rural North Dakota Sunday night and spilled hazardous materials, but local authorities and the railroad said there is no threat to public safety. There were no injuries and no fire associated with the derailment, which occurred in a rural area outside Windmere, a town of several hundred people about 60 miles southwest of Fargo. Canadian Pacific spokesperson Andy Cummings said 31 of the 70 cars on the train left the tracks around 11 to 15 p.m. Sunday, and some of the cars leaked liquid asphalt. But there are no waterways near where the derailment happened. The railroad's hazardous materials experts are working with local first responders to clean up the spill. Several roads in the area were shut down. No injuries have been reported. There is no fire. There are no waterways nearby and there are no evacuations. There is no threat to public safety. Read a statement from Canadian Pacific VP of Communications Patrick Waldron. The safety of crews, first responders and the public remains our highest priority. Our hazardous materials experts are continuing a full assessment of the incident in coordination with local first responders. Quote, "It wasn't immediately clear what caused the derailment or exactly how much liquid asphalt spilled. Railroad safety has been in the spotlight nationally ever since last month's fiery derailment of a Norfolk Southern train near East Palestine, Ohio. Roughly half of that town of about 5,000 people near the Pennsylvania border had to be evacuated after officials decided to release and burn toxic chemicals. Kerala train fire. 3 killed, including child. Terror angle not ruled out. The police did not rule out a terror angle as they recovered a bag from the tracks that had another bottle of petrol and 2 mobile phones. 3 people were killed and many suffered burn injuries after an unidentified person poured inflammable oil on co-passengers and set them afire inside the D1 coach of the Alappuzha-Kannur Express around 9:50 p.m. on Sunday after the train left Kozhikode railway station, North Kerala, the police said. 3 bodies, including that of an infant, were later recovered from the railway tracks as police suspect that they may have jumped out of the moving train in panic. 2 of the deceased have been identified as Taufik and Rahana. Vorshatin train crash. On 4 April 2023, a freight train and a passenger train collided with construction equipment obstructing the line at Vorshatin, South Holland, Netherlands. The passenger train was derailed. The operator of the crane was killed and 30 people were injured, 19 of whom were hospitalized. At 3:25 a freight train, operated by DB Cargo and hauled by DBAG Class 189 locomotive number 189054, collided with a road rail crane that was obstructing the line at Voorschoten, South Holland, Netherlands, which connects Leiden Centraal with Den Haag Centraal and Den Haag Hollands Spoor, all located on the Amsterdam-Haarlem-Rotterdam Railway. The locomotive hauling the freight train was severely damaged, but was not derailed. The crane landed in the path of, and was then run into by, a passenger train, operated by NS Verm Unit 9405. There was between 1 and 5 minutes between the two collisions. The passenger train was traveling at 137 km per hour, 85 miles per hour, when it collided with the crane. All 4 vehicles of the passenger train were derailed. 2 of the 4 tracks through Voorschoten had been closed for investigation and engineering work to take place. A small fire broke out in the rearmost carriage of the passenger train, but it was quickly extinguished. The passenger train was traveling from Leiden to Den Haag, South Holland. A code 50 inches alert was issued, as more than 50 people were presumably injured. A Grip 3 situation was also declared, indicating an incident that threatens the well-being of a large number of people in a single municipality. The driver of the freight train was reported to have survived uninjured. The driver of the passenger train survived with several broken bones. 2 conductors on the passenger train were injured. On 5 April 2023, ProRail CEO John Voppen stated that the freight train was likely to have been on the correct track. On 7 April, it was reported that the crane had arrived at the site ahead of schedule. Permission was requested at 3:23 for traffic to be stopped to allow the crane to be placed on track. The crane operator was told to wait for 10 minutes before this would be possible. By 3:29, power had been lost to the overhead catenary at Voorschoten. 3 hurt as CPKC train derails in Maine. 3 crew members were reported to have suffered minor injuries after a CPKC freight train derailed and caught fire early today, Saturday, April 15, apparently as a result of a track washout, Reuters reports. Maine's Forest Service said 3 locomotives and 6 railcars carrying lumber and electrical wiring derailed north of Rockwood, causing a small forest fire. Other cars on the train were reportedly carrying hazardous materials but did not derail and posed no risk, according to the report. The derailment occurred about 8:30 a.m. The Forest Service, Maine Department of Environmental Protection, and local emergency services responded. Rockwood is about 90 miles northwest of Bangor, Maine. Karachi Express train fire. On 27 April 2023, early in the morning, a fire broke out in a coach of the Karachi Express train, leaving at least 7 people dead, including 4 children and a woman. The event happened as the train was traveling from Karachi to Lahore in Sindh's Khairpur district near Tonda Masti Khan. It is yet unknown what started the fire. Before the train arrived at the Rory station, the railway authorities reported that the fire had begun in the business class compartment. The train's driver halted travel and began removing passengers. The fire was extinguished, and the rescue mission was over. Following the afflicted cabin's separation from other compartments, the affected train continued on its route to Khairpur. A woman allegedly perished while attempting to jump from the train to escape the fire, according to the authorities. Khawaja Saad Rafiq, Minister of Federal Railways and Aviation, commissioned an investigation into the event. The investigative team arrived in Khairpur to ascertain the origin of the fire and any potential government negligence. Train crashes into group of people, killing 2 near Cologne. 2 people have been killed in a train crash close to the German city of Cologne, the federal police said on Thursday. An intercity, IC, passenger train en route from the northern port city of Emden in Lower Saxony to Koblenz to the southeast of Cologne and Bonn hit a group of rail workers, according to Deutsche Bahn. The train was traveling at a speed of 160 km per hour at the time of the crash. The 2 workers killed in the accident died immediately, according to police. "Our thoughts are with the deceased, injured and their relatives," a spokesman for the railway said. Emergency services and police were deployed in large numbers, while a helicopter circled over the accident site. Taichung crane collapse. On 10 May 2023, a construction crane fell 30 floors from a construction site of High Wealth Construction Corp onto a moving Taichung Metro Green Line train south of Fung La Park Metro Station, Taichung, Taiwan, killing 1 and injuring 10 passengers on board. The deceased passenger, legal scholar Lin Shu-ya, 52, was ejected out of the train carriage upon impact, resulting in her being crushed under the same train. One passenger on board, a Canadian national, claimed that the driverless train was stationary when the crane fell onto the tracks and the train then proceeded to drive and collide straight onto the fallen crane. Double-decker express train derails, no one hurt. The Southwestern Railway officials said that a pair of wheels of a coach, second from the rear, of Dr. MGR Chennai Central, KSR Bengaluru Double-Decker Express, train number 22625, derailed soon after leaving Basanattam station. After detaching the affected coach, the train left for Bengaluru. Odisha train collision. On 2 June 2023, 3 trains collided in Balasore district in the East Indian state of Odisha. The accident occurred around 1900 IST when Coromandel Express, a passenger train, collided with a stationary goods train near Bahanaga Bazar railway station on the Howrah-Chennai main line. Due to the high speed of the passenger train and the heavy tonnage of the goods train, the impact resulted in 21 coaches of the Coromandel Express derailing and 3 of those collided with the oncoming SMVT Bengaluru Howrah Superfast Express on the adjacent track. 296 people were killed in the crash and more than 1,200 were injured. It was one of the deadliest railway accidents in India. National Disaster Response Force, NDRF, and Odisha Disaster Rapid Action Force, ODRAF, were involved in the search and recovery efforts, assisted by other government agencies and the general public. The injured were treated at local hospitals in the region. In the aftermath, operations of more than 150 trains were impacted, with the cancellation of at least 48 trains. The rail services resumed on the line on 5 June after restoration work. Preliminary investigation revealed that the Coromandel Express entered a passing loop line instead of the main line at full speed and crashed into the stationary goods train. In the aftermath, Railway Minister stated that a change in electronic interlocking due to an error in electronic signaling caused the crash. He also said that sabotage was suspected and the Railway Board had recommended a Central Bureau of Investigation (CBI)-led probe. On 7 July 2023, the CBI arrested 3 railway officials believed to be responsible for the accident. Despite the statement of the railway authorities that the accident was not a reflection of the safety issues in the system, various questions were raised by journalists, politicians and retired railway employees. The railway lines were not equipped with the Kavak train protection system. It was made aware that a similar signaling error had been reported earlier in February 2023 and a December 2022 report by the Controller and Auditor General of India had warned that the Safety Department of the Railways lacked adequate staffing and funding, suffered from misuse of funds and that these could impact the quality of maintenance. Night train to Amsterdam, Hamburg evacuated after fire breaks out in Austria tunnel. The emergency services in Austria evacuated 151 passengers from an international night train late last night due to a fire in the Turfner tunnel in the Tyrol region. The nightjet train was heading to Amsterdam and Hamburg, NOS reports. 33 passengers had to go to a local hospital to be treated for smoke inhalation. The other passengers received medical attention at the scene, local media reported. According to NS, there were likely also Dutch people on the train, though it is unclear whether any of them were among the injured. The fire in the 15-kilometer-long tunnel broke out around 9:00 p.m. Likely after a damaged overhead line fell on a train transporting cars. According to the Tiroler Tageszeitung, 20 fire brigades from the area responded, deploying around 700 firefighters. They evacuated the train, extinguished the blaze, and ventilated the tunnel. The evacuated travelers were sheltered in tents until buses came to take them to hotels in Innsbruck, an NS spokesperson told ANP. It is unclear when they'll travel the rest of the way to their destinations. 26 injured as trains collide in Turkey's northern Samsun province. A collision between two trams in Turkey's northern province of Samsun on Friday left at least 26 people injured, one severely, according to preliminary reports. In the accident that occurred in Samsun's Canik district in the early morning hours, two trams belonging to Samsun Light Rail System, Samulas, slammed into each other close to the Piazza stop, as per Anadolu Agency, reports. A large number of Disaster and Emergency Management Authority, AFAD, firefighters and medical teams were dispatched to the site of the accident after being notified about the accident. The medical teams transferred the injured to nearby hospitals in the city by ambulances. Following the accident, Samsun Governor Zulkif Dali and Metropolitan Mayor Mustafa Demir conducted on-site investigations, wishing the wounded citizens a speedy recovery. Speaking to journalists, Dali confirmed that the accident took place at 9:40 a.m. 6:40 a.m. GMT, as one tram slammed into the back of a malfunctioning tram that was moving in the direction toward Tekkeköy. Unfortunately, the situation seems a bit difficult. We have 26 people injured, most of whom are lightly wounded and are receiving outpatient treatment. We have experienced an unfortunate accident. It's a momentous event. We believe it's a case of a technical hitch, Dali noted. Demir, on the other hand, noted that the incident will be investigated and that according to initial reports, there are no life-threatening injuries among the wounded. Tunisia train derailment kills 2, injures 34. 2 people were killed and 34 injured when an overnight passenger train careered off the tracks and overturned in eastern Tunisia on Wednesday, the state-owned SNCFT rail company said. The accident occurred shortly after midnight, 2300 GMT, when a train operating between Tunis and the southern city of Gabes derailed near Messaken, a town about 150 kilometers, 95 miles, from the capital. The driver and a passenger were killed while 34 other passengers were injured, the SNCFT said. An investigation has been opened to clarify the circumstances and causes of the accident and to determine who was responsible, it added. The accident comes 15 months after a collision between 2 trains in the south of the capital injured around 100 people. In December 2016, 5 people were killed and more than 50 injured in the same area when a train and a public bus collided. Blamed on faulty infrastructure, the accident prompted the sacking of the SNCFT's then chief executive. In June 2015, Tunisia experienced one of the worst rail accidents in its recent history when 18 people died in a crash between a train and a truck at El Fahiz, about 60 kilometers south of Tunis. The collision was caused by a signaling fault at a level crossing. 21 passengers injured in a collision between a train and a truck in northern Czech Republic. A passenger train collided with a truck in northern Czech Republic on Wednesday, injuring at least 21 people, officials said. The National Rescue Agency said 9 passengers on the train sustained moderate injuries. The other 12 passengers, including 2 schoolchildren, were lightly injured. Police said that 19 schoolchildren were among 65 passengers aboard. The accident took place before 2 p.m. at a crossing in Straż nad Nisą near the city of Liberec, 100 kilometers, about 60 miles, north of Prague. Authorities have been working to determine how the collision took place. Amtrak train partially derails after water truck obstructs tracks in Moorpark, 16 injured. Investigators and passengers are asking questions Wednesday evening after an Amtrak train derailed after colliding with a water truck obstructing the tracks in Moorpark. Officials said a total of 16 people were injured, including the driver of the water truck, but there were no serious injuries. If train cars had actually toppled over completely, officials believe there would have been a lot more people injured. "We're very lucky today that the trains stayed on the wheels," said Andy Van Siver of Ventura County Fire. "Obviously, it was derailed but it stayed vertical. I think that really limited the amount of injuries we had." Quote, AIR-7 HD was above the scene and captured the train with several of its cars off the tracks. People could also be seen on ambulance stretchers. One couple was headed to the hospital after one of them suffered an arm injury. The train was traveling westbound and filled with more than 200 people at the time at the crash. Some of the passengers spoke with Eyewitness News about the ordeal. "Yeah, I was listening to an audio tape and I was laying back on the sofa, and all of a sudden, we hit very hard and things were flying around," said Debbie Welsford of Anaheim. "Our luggage, my cup, the water. Everything was just flying around the room and we realized we hit something, so we came out and looked and saw the water tank." Quote, "It was very brief. Felt the train make impact and, flew me forward in the car," said Matthew Roberts of Paso Robles. "Immediately got up to see if everyone around me was okay. The car filled with a lot of dust and it took about 30 seconds for the train to come to a stop and we assessed the situation, made sure everyone was okay, and got to the exit and that was it." Quote, "The water truck was delivering water to local ranches in the rural area when it got in the way of the train. The driver was talking with police before being taken to the hospital. It's unclear why the water truck was in the train's way. Officials were busing the uninjured passengers to the Moorpark Senior Center where they could be reunited with loved ones. Amtrak worked with passengers to help them get to their final destination. The train was set to stop in Oxnard on its way to Seattle. The tracks themselves have been damaged due to the collision as well, and it was unclear how people who use the line to and from work would be able to travel home Wednesday night." TTC's Line 3 shut down after train derailment, multiple passengers injured. TTC's Line 3 remains shut down after a train separated and derailed from the tracks, injuring 5 people and sparking an internal investigation. It happened in the Kennedy and Ellesmere Roads area when a southbound train came off the tracks at Ellesmere Station around 7 p.m. Deputy Fire Chief Jim Jessup told reporters at the scene of the derailment that 5 people were transported to the hospital for assessment, describing their injuries as minor. "The train flipped off the tracks, and they were thrown inside when it happened, and our crews were able to assist them getting out and then deliver them to the care of paramedic services," Jessup said. A TTC spokesperson said the rear car separated from the rest of the train and derailed. It's unclear what caused the incident. There were 44 passengers who needed to be evacuated from the Line 3 train, according to TTC officials. Crews worked overnight to inspect the track bed and were able to successfully remove the derailed train car from the tracks using a lift. The train car was driven away on the flatbed of a large transport truck. At least 13 people hurt in LIRR train derailment in NYC. At least 13 people were hurt when an LIRR train with about 100 passengers on board derailed in Queens, officials and sources said. All 8 cars of the passenger train derailed just east of the Jamaica Station complex at 175th Street and 95th Avenue around 11:12 a.m. According to sources and the FDNY. Those hurt suffered leg and back injuries, sources said. 2 of the passengers suffered serious injuries, but most of the injuries were minor and all were expected to fully recover, MTA officials said. The derailment was expected to impact the Thursday evening and Friday morning rush hours, MTA Chair Jana Lieber said at a press briefing on the incident. The restoration process is not merely a matter of re-railing the train, there is damage to the ties and other railroad infrastructure as well, Lieber said of the timeline for repairs. We'll have to come back to the public about how long it's going to be until that track and our ability to provide full Long Island Railroad service is back in action, he added. The train schedule will be updated by 3 p.m. online. The train departed from Grand Central at 10:43 a.m. and was due to arrive at Hempstead at 11:37 a.m. before it derailed, the MTA said. The cause of the derailment was not immediately known, but the speed, which was 54 miles per hour at the time, was not believed to be a factor. Each train has downloadable data on the car's mechanics and will be analyzed as part of the investigation. The FDNY was called at around 11:30 a.m. and helped get the passengers off the train, Fire Commissioner Laura Kavanaugh said. This is a complex and dangerous operation, but they were able to get to work quickly and determined that they were able to get all of the passengers off the train to another location to be assessed by EMS, Kavanaugh said. Passengers were transferred to an alternate train. Train collides with pickup truck in Thailand, kills 8. 4 people were injured in the crash at an unauthorized crossing point without barriers in Mueang district in Chachoengsao province. 8 people have been killed after a freight train struck a pickup truck that was crossing railway tracks in an eastern province of Thailand. The accident, which occurred at 2:20 a.m., 1920 Greenwich Mean Time, on Friday in the Mueang district of Chachoengsao province, also injured 4 people, according to the State Railway of Thailand. 1 victim was in critical condition. The deceased included 3 women aged 22, 55 and 64, and 5 men aged 18, 27, 55, 60 and 62, the rail agency said. The bodies were taken to a police hospital to allow relatives to prepare for religious rites. The site of the accident on a concrete road was at an unauthorized crossing point without any automatic barriers to stop vehicles when trains approach. There are 693 unauthorized crossing points currently being used along the national rail system, the agency said. Despite the crossing being unsanctioned, a photo of the accident site provided by authorities shows lights and warning signs there. Hazara Express derailment. On 6 August 2023, at 13:18 pkt, 8:18 Coordinated Universal Time, 10 coaches of the Hazara Express traveling from Karachi to Havelian in Pakistan derailed near Nawabshah, in Sindh. At least 30 people were killed and more than 100 were injured. Due to outdated systems, some of which have not been updated since the colonial era, crashes and derailments on Pakistan's railways are not uncommon. The government has faced criticism for neglecting the signal systems and aging tracks. Residents said the tracks remained in bad condition after the 2022 floods. A day earlier, the Allama Iqbal Express derailed near Paditan without casualties. The 2021 Ghatki rail crash also took place in the same province. According to local reports from 2013 to 2019, 150 people died in train incidents. Train derails and roads flood as Sweden, Norway hit by torrential rain. Heavy rainfall drenched southern Scandinavia on Monday, causing a train to derail and roads to flood in what officials in Sweden and Norway warned could become the most extreme wet weather system to hit the region in decades. Swedish and Norwegian meteorologists issued red alerts, the most severe warning level, covering several days this week, and said the hardest hit places could receive a month or more worth of normal rainfall in 24 hours and the worst floods in 25 years in Norway, or even 50 years for Sweden. A train carrying more than 100 passengers derailed in eastern Sweden as the rain partly washed away the railway embankment, injuring 3 people who were taken to hospital, police said. Gale force winds and thunderstorms knocked out local power lines and disrupted several Baltic and North Sea ferries as well as some air traffic, while Norway suspended certain train services and postponed a number of outdoor football matches. Hitting Sweden late on Sunday and reaching Norway on Monday, the low-pressure system was dubbed Hans by the Norwegian Meteorological Institute, which said naming the weather system makes it easier to get the public's attention. Gotthard Rail Tunnel, world's longest, closes for months after Swiss derailment. The derailment of a cargo train in the Gotthard Base Tunnel on 10 August 2023 caused considerably more serious damage than initially assumed. The repair work will therefore take much longer than originally expected. SBB has estimated that the tunnel will not be fully reopened for passenger and cargo trains until September 2024. From the timetable change on 10 December 2023, SBB intends to increase capacity for freight transport during the week and for passenger transport at weekends. Following the extensive damage clearance and retrieval work, SBB has spent the last few weeks assessing the damage caused by the derailment of the goods train in the Gotthard Base Tunnel. Based on the latest findings, it estimates the amount of damage, including loss of revenue, at around 100 to 130 million Swiss francs. Carriageway has to be renewed over 7 kilometers. The damage in the tunnel is much more serious than it initially appeared. The carriageway has to be completely renewed over 7 kilometers. This involves replacing the rails along this entire stretch, as well as over 20,000 sleeper blocks and the concrete layer in which they are cast. In addition, the damaged track change gate, 2 high-speed switches and many other safety and operationally relevant system components need to be replaced. Up to 80 SBB and third-party employees are working in 3 shifts every day. Under very demanding logistical and climatic conditions, around 300 meters of the 7 kilometers of damaged track are currently being renewed every week. The installation of the track change gate and the 2 high-speed switches at the Fado multifunction station will also take several weeks. Once all the repair work has been completed, there will be an intensive commissioning phase with thorough acceptance and testing work as well as test runs so that trains can once again travel through the west tube of the Gotthard Base Tunnel. 10 killed in fire on Lucknow-Ramaswaram train. At least 10 persons were reported dead in a fire that broke out inside a stationary train compartment in Madurai railway station in the wee hours of Saturday, the Southern Railway said, adding a gas cylinder, illegally taken in led to the blaze. The private party coach, with 65 passengers, had arrived from Lucknow in Uttar Pradesh. 10 persons reported dead in the fire, a Southern Railway release said. Police, fire and rescue services personnel besides railway staff, involved in dousing the fire, extricated the charred bodies from the compartment. The fire broke out at 5:15 a.m. on Saturday and the fire service personnel who arrived at the spot half an hour later put down the blaze by 7:15 a.m., a Southern Railway release said. This is a private party coach that was attached at Nagercoil Junction yesterday, August 25, by train No. 16730, Punalur Madurai Express. Party coach was detached and kept at Madurai stabling line. The passengers in the private party coach have smuggled gas cylinder and this has caused the fire, the release said. The party coach had started the journey from Lucknow on August 17, scheduled to return to Chennai on Sunday and return to Lucknow from there, it added. While the coach was stabled, parked, some members of the party in the private party coach were using the illegally smuggled cooking gas cylinder unauthorizedly for preparing tea, snacks, which caused the fire in the stabled, parked coach. Most of the passengers could get out of the coach on noticing fire. Some passengers had already got down at platform also before detachment of coach, it added. Ex gratia of 10 lakh rupees was being paid to each of the family of the deceased, it said. Speeding train kills 5 rail workers in northern Italy accident. Local media reported that the train was traveling about 160 km per hour when 5 rail workers were killed in the Turin area. A train hit and killed 5 workers and injured 2 others on railway tracks in the Turin area of northern Italy, local media has reported. The accident took place at approximately midnight, 2200 Greenwich Mean Time, on Wednesday in the municipality of Brandizzo, part of Turin's metropolitan area, Italy's ANSA news agency reported. Dhaka rail collision. The 2023 Dhaka rail collision was a train accident involving the collision of a freight train and a passenger train that resulted in the deaths of at least 17. Egarasindor-Gadhuli Express was heading to Dhaka and had just reached the Kishoreganj district. A cargo train heading to Chattogram was also on the same line. The collision occurred on Monday, October 23, 2023, 3:30 p.m. when a cargo train rear-ended a passenger train, derailing the 2 rearmost cars. The impact of the collision overturned one of the cars, trapping many passengers inside of it. The exact number of deaths in the incident has been placed as either 17 or 20. Andhra Pradesh train collision. On 29 October 2023, 2 passenger trains collided in southern India's Vizianagaram district in Andhra Pradesh state, killing at least 14 people and leaving about 60 others injured. 3 carriages of a stationary passenger train were derailed after it was hit by another train. On 2 March 2024, Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw claimed that the driver and the assistant driver of one of the 2 passenger trains that collided were watching a cricket match on the phone. No evidence was found after the analysis of mobile data usage of the loco pilots. Chicago train crash. On November 16, 2023, a Chicago Transit Authority (CTA) passenger train collided with maintenance equipment north of Howard Station, injuring 16 people. At 10:39 a.m. local time, 7:50 Coordinated Universal Time, on November 16, 2023, a Yellow Line passenger train, carrying 30 passengers and 1 operator, approaching its terminal at Howard Station at 26.9 miles per hour, 43.3 kilometers per hour, collided with stopped snow removal equipment, carrying 6 employees, on the southern track. The front car of the 2-car train was partially crushed and derailed. 15 ambulances responded to the scene. Of the 37 people aboard both vehicles, 16 were injured, 3 of which were in critical condition. Kentucky train derailment. On the afternoon of November 22, 2023, at approximately 2:23 p.m. Eastern Time, a CSX mixed freight train derailed in Rockcastle County, Kentucky, causing a major spill of molten sulfur chemicals near Roundstone Creek, a creek located northwest of Livingston. Only 1 member of the CSX train's 2-person crew was treated at the scene for minor injuries. The incident occurred 6 days after a similar CSX derailment that happened in Atlanta, Georgia. Firefighters control grass fire sparked by coal train derailment in NSW. New South Wales firefighters have controlled a grass fire that was sparked from a coal train that derailed on Wednesday. 26 carriages of an empty coal train derailed about 80 kilometers west of Muswellbrook in the Bylong Valley. The crash sparked a grass fire that was controlled on Sunday after burning nearly 40 hectares. 9 local brigades and a water-bombing aircraft were deployed to fight the fire. Under the extreme heat of the past few days, the fire spread into steep terrain around the railway line. Beijing subway collision. On 14 December 2023, 2 trains on the Changping line of the Beijing subway in Beijing, China collided in heavy snow, resulting in at least 515 injuries, but no fatalities. The tracks had become slippery, which caused the first train to automatically apply its brakes. A second train following behind was unable to stop in time, and crashed into the first. The 2 trains involved in the collision were CRRC Qingdao Sifang SFM 13 trainsets, the first train being CP024 and the second CP032. The 2 trains entered service in 2015. There was heavy snow the day before the collision, which caused the temporary closure of some train lines and schools, and above-ground trains were instructed to be operated manually and to maintain a larger gap between trains. On the day of the accident, Beijing set an orange alert for heavy snow and a yellow alert for icy roads, which is unusual for Beijing as it rarely experiences snowfall. The line on which the accident occurred transports approximately 400,000 people each weekday. Train accident in North Korea kills more than 400 people. More than 400 North Korean passengers were killed in a train accident last month, according to Radio Free Asia, RFA, on Jan. 16. A passenger train traveling from Pyongyang to Komdok on deck 26, 2023, was overturned due to a power shortage while traveling up a steep slope, according to a source with knowledge of the matter, reported RFA. The train, heading towards Lipa Station from Dongam Station, navigated a steep slope 700 meters above sea level after passing Danshan Station in South Hamgyong Province. A sudden power shortage pushed the train backward, causing 7 carriages to derail and roll down the mountain. The source explained that the train's traction voltage weakened as it ascended towards Lipa Station, causing it to lose momentum and begin rolling backward. The driver attempted to brake, but the train accelerated downhill, and 7 carriages derailed near Sinpyeong Station. The locomotive and the first 2 carriages immediately behind it remained on the tracks and made it safely to Danshan Station. The passengers in the prestige front carriages, mostly high-ranking officials, survived the incident. But the majority of passengers on the 7 carriages that rolled down the mountain died. North Korean passenger trains typically consist of 9 to 11 carriages, each with 60 seats, with the first 2 or 3 carriages reserved for high-ranking officials. This is followed by 1 luggage carriage and 7 carriages for general passengers. The source estimates that over 400 passengers were in the 7 carriages that were overturned. The 7 carriages were reportedly filled with young men in their 20s headed for the Komdok mines and housewives out on business to make ends meet. North Korean authorities set up a task force to investigate the accident and dispose of the bodies. Those who were severely injured were rescued from the site and taken to a hospital in Danshan, but most of them died in the hospital, the source said. The accident mirrors a similar tragedy that occurred in November 1998 on the same steep railway near Danshan.